Welcome to a new podcast episode of the Beauty of Business podcast. Today's guest is a mental coach, public speaker, Norwegian soldier, and part-time politician. There's a lot to unpack here, so welcome to the pod, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Alexander. It's a pleasure to be here.
I think we need a breakdown here. How do you do all of these things at the same time?
Yeah, well, to get straight on it, it's been a lot lately, but I do find value and meaning in all of it. And as I say, maybe a little bit rude or frank, that instead of me being, out in the city, drinking a lot or picking my nose, I do find, yeah, true meaning in doing a lot of this stuff, even though they diverge from each other. Politics, sports psychology, and the Norwegian Armed Forces. In some sense, they also do have something in similar to each other, even though they are different fields. So, yeah, I do think I have a high motivation for doing a lot of stuff. So it's the classic, the to-do lists and all of that. But I do think the work is in finding the value. Like, why do you do why you do what you do, right?
How did you get into all these different things? Because there are some similarities, but it's like a lot here to become proficient at something, but then you're proficient at multiple things.
Yeah, because the danger here is, as some of my colleagues have been, always been warning me about this, you can end up in being semi-good in a lot of stuff. But in the Norwegian Armed Forces, I work in a staff position right now, which is quite good for me because then it's mostly day working, 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, as Americans often say. And it's in a field that I care about, intelligence and security, which is good for me, easy for me to advise, assist, and train people in it. And with my own company in sports psychology or performance psychology, it's something that I've educated myself in with formal education, 2 years advanced program in sports psychology, and now I do a PhD in performance psychology as well. Having Well, right now I have less than 10 athletes,
Yeah.
and it's kind of funny because when I'm coaching the athletes, I also help myself. Like today, for example, one of the guys, he's actually not an athlete. He's a business owner, and he talked about sleep and getting his thoughts out of his head, writing it down, discussing the thoughts, and also trying to project what will come tomorrow and the next week. And by discussing this with him, it also helps me that shit, I need to remember to schedule in some time for myself, for my future. What do I want? Do I get in the classic hamster wheel of just, surviving, or do I actually want to achieve something? And the last part with the politics, it's been an ongoing process where I just slowly gone into it, almost without consent. But Norway is such a small country; they
Yeah.
need some voices, and I was picked out to be one of those voices, which also I found very meaningful, helpful. But as I told them, I warned them about that I don't have a lot of capacity. I'm doing a lot of other stuff, mostly armed forces and sports psychology.
Yeah.
Yes, I have some investments in property and stuff, and I'm renting out some apartments, but they very much accepted that. And as long as I can contribute with my small part, which is rarely enough, it is within like fertility rates and birth rates, which is
Yeah.
quite funny. And the other part is readiness and crisis management, which is, my field in armed forces. Yeah.
It's impressive, first of all. The second part of it is how do you actually manage your time? Because we discussed before this kind of the time management, task management on a day-to-day basis. What's your advice and how do you do it?
Yeah, it's a very good question because normally you can say, oh, it's complex, it's nuanced, you need to rest. Yeah, we all know that. We know, like, we want some concrete stuff
Yeah,
done here. So I used to quote my colleague, and that is, if it's not in the calendar, it's not happening. So I'm very hard, like extremely hard, on my calendar, like with color codes. This meeting has a color code.
yeah,
After this, I will go for a run for an hour, and then I will rest for the whole day. And also tomorrow, I have booked in rest, or actually exercise and rest for the whole day, because I know that Sunday will be a working day for me.
yeah,
So I'm just very hard on that, but I know that different personality types crave different things. This might sound spiritual for most people, and I'm glad I can be in this podcast because normally I talk very hard about science, which we also
yeah,
could, but one of the semi-science and kind of belief system is Jungian type index, which is one type of decision making and personality psychology. And a lot of people have heard about the big five, which I
yeah,
also support. But I really love Jungian type index. And for my personality, looking at the wholeness or the holistic approach is very good. But if, for example, if you are an ISTJ, which is something different than I am, you would love to go into details. Or, for example, you would be like, okay, but how do I specifically solve these big tasks with a lot of 10 subtasks? Well, I can be, well, I just do this and that, and I'm quite happy, and I will move on to the next task. So it's kind of, what kind of person are you? And I try to use this knowledge to my athletes as well, or to the one that I coach and when I hold keynotes. Because for me, it works to just dip my toe in the different tasks, do them well enough, and I can be almost ignorant and arrogant and just move on to the next task without judging too much. But if it's like a business owner like you, or a military officer that tells me, well, I need to give you some feedback, Daniel. And I'm like, okay, I will listen. And then if they give the feedback very seriously, thoroughly, and direct, I will respect that. If it's, oh yeah, but your article, about women or whatever that I put on in the media, yeah, that one was bad. I'll be like, okay, what is bad about it? And if you're
yeah,
convincing, I will listen. But apart from that, I will just move on.
yeah,
And that is, I think that explains a bit because I work like that, but it's not necessarily that you do that or another person does it. So that's for me everything, hard on the calendar, like plan my rest, because I think that is what people miss the most is planning the rest. Because I know myself, if I have free will, I will work myself to death. I don't know about you on that.
yeah. I'll probably sit here about 14 to 16 hours a day if there was nothing else. Maybe work out, but yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
But I've seen you have a lot of cool videos where you're walking, either
Yeah.
in the sun, or it seems like you're enjoying a book or something or drinking coffee. And then inside myself, I think, Alexander is enjoying himself, but I'm not sure. Are you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So usually in the mornings I just go out for coffee instead of making it at home. One, you get to move a little bit before starting working. Secondly, you get sunlight, which is obviously a big, big thing. Um, and then I know when I sit down, it's going to be chaos all day, every day. So it's kind of like taking some time back and breathe and get ready for the day. And yeah, I read a lot as well. Some of it is obviously for business, but also a lot for pleasure.
But that reminds me of something because if you heard about the Eisenhower matrix about priorities, I'm not gonna explain it like very thoroughly, but if we can simplify it into, important and urgent and
Yeah.
very not important and very not urgent or something Norwenglish. Um, it reminds me of something that happened straight before I came to this podcast because my plan the quote, planning is everything, the plan is nothing. So I planned to be a bit prepared for this podcast. So I started writing something, which I thought about for a long time. And suddenly the phone calls, this was on the in the Norwegian Armed Forces. And this woman, she tells me about something urgent. I cannot go into details because it's some security matters. But when I listened to her, I was first inclined to help her straight away because it sounded quite important, to be honest.
Yeah.
But then I listened a bit, or I tried to listen a bit deeper. And then I asked, but because you have this chaos and because you have bad time, that doesn't mean that I need to do something. I think if
Oh,
you were to restructure, uh, maybe we can do this on Monday. Agree or not agree? And I want you to be honest with me. Like I might have wrong here. And then she was a bit disagreeing with me in the beginning. And then she said, well, actually, the house is not on fire. We will make this on Monday. And I was like, thank you very much. And bless you. I need to go. So I think about this a lot. That a lot of bad uh, timing for people is because it's chaos in front of it. So it's kind of this sounds like Jordan Peterson, right? Like make your bed,
yeah.
clean your room, and everything will go well for you. And I truly believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, it also reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, especially to use in business. It's a lack of planning on your end does not constitute a chaos or emergency on my end,
I love
which
that
is
one.
yeah, it's really good, and it need to kind of bring it into your business and in especially if you have employees or work with a lot of different people. That planning part is essential because if you do not plan, it affects everyone else, but it's not an emergency for me that you did not do your work.
Correct. And also that's why I love the planning is everything, the plan is nothing, because
Yeah.
when stuff happens and I know if you have children and they fall and you need to pick them up from the kindergarten like straight away or whatever, like then you know that whatever you're doing right now, it's yeah, cool that you have planned for it, but now it's a new plan. So it's staying flexible, and that's also just to be a bit nerdy about it, goes back to the full circle moment of personality psychology. Because if you're an S type, you would be more averse against changes. But if you are a holistic thinker like me, I think, oh yeah, I don't care. I need to drive there. Cool. And yeah, then it will be different. But then I have, I will lose details, which is
Yeah.
not good as well. So it's not about good or bad. It's just we're all different, and we need to find what works for us, which is the boring phrase to say.
I'm also very interested in because the planning part, the time management part is essential for doing a lot of things. And honestly, if you kind of just have your 9 to 5 as well, better planning and time management could definitely help you in your work, but also in your private life. But most people also struggle with the kind of energy on a day-to-day basis. How do you have so much energy to do these things? And what are your kind of best tips to get more energy?
Yeah, I love this question again, and I never gone so much back and forth on the Jungian type index because again, I will look over details. That means that
Yeah,
if I feel that I have a lack of energy, I won't care about it. I will be like, oh yeah, whatever. I will cry while writing. But people are like if you're the opposite, you will be like, oh shit, I have a bad day, therefore I cannot train. And
yeah,
normally, I would say it's good to listen to your body, but if I were to listen to my body and only work when I feel good, I promise you that much that I wouldn't work any time a week. Because some days, for example, today, I came home a bit late yesterday. So even though yesterday wasn't a hard day, I got little little sleep. So I think it was maybe 6.5 hours, and I feel a bit foggy, like right now
yeah.
while sitting here. But I still went to work. So I would be more concerned if no one showed up to work. So kind of uh, again, what are the 1 to 2 tasks you want to
Yeah.
complete today instead of what are the 4 to 5 tasks you want to complete today? And now now I'm on my end of the day, and this is the enjoyable part, like recording a podcast, which I love, and the urgent ones, they are. Um, I executed them straightly in the morning
Yeah.
because I felt that this will be a hard day. I need to do the hard tasks first. But actually, in because a lot of popular people, they say do the hard tasks first. But sometimes I go against that advice, and I do some easier tasks in the beginning. For example, post a LinkedIn post
Yeah.
about leadership. And for me, that's about warming up. But I know that people disagree. So, like not everyone listen to this. But for me, it sometimes helps just
Yeah.
warming up my writing muscles and thinking muscles and reading muscles. And then my second task is the biggest task. Yeah.
I think that might be from your background in sports as well as the psychology part of things, because in sports we have to warm up before performing, which is kind of both physical but also mental. Like the warm-up part is yes, physical, so we don't get injured and ready for work, but it's also mental, kind of psyching up and finding kind of that threshold as to this is where I'm performing. The psychology part is also if you've done two or three tasks successfully before getting into the hard task, it's okay, I've got some feedback, good feelings, and then getting onto that hard part.
And that's why I love the good old Mel Robbins, because first with her 5 second rule book, which was
Yeah,
really amazing when me and you were younger, and now she has the let them theory, which
yeah,
is like sounds good. I haven't read it, but those two, just if I were to imagine, right? It's sometimes I want to check Instagram Reels or whatever. And I sometimes think about, do I want to be a consumer or do I want to be a producer?
yeah,
Of course, in our field, we want to be a producer. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to be a consumer, but in our field, we would definitely produce more than we consume, right?
yeah,
So I'm thinking very much on the why. Why do I do what I do? And that helps me a little bit. And sometimes, not right now, but sometimes I used to have on my background on my mobile phone, either a professional athlete that I look up to or a leader I look up to, either a very cliche quote or something, which helps me, reminding me, now I remember, like having those, cues,
yeah.
and that plus the 5 second rule, like the rocket will launch in 5 seconds, and I will thrive. That gives me a little self-talk boost of actually doing it, and that's why I want to be concrete about it. It's nothing spiritual or crazy about it. It's just okay, Q plus my time for when I have to do it,
Yeah.
5 seconds that the rocket will launch. Then I know that it's more likely than not that I will execute it. Yeah.
A lot of the things we've talked about so far is also, you mentioned it on the time management and the Jungian index. It's a lot about knowing yourself, kind of who am I, what kind of personality am I, what drives and motivates me. Um, if you don't know yourself, how do you kind of figure those things out?
I think also that's a very like nice question and nice to be in this podcast talking about it, because I don't usually do it, but I have a lot of thoughts about it,
Yeah,
because what you're saying is something that I've observed, and again, that is no science to it, it's just like my subjective opinion about it. But I can feel that people are walking around, or at least my friends and some colleagues, and like, what should I do today? And I'm like, how the hell can you choose for yourself? I again, we're very different, right? But
sure.
uh, I'm thinking, what do you want to do? And some people say it's no, it's just a crazy dream that I have, and I'm like, oh yeah, but tell me about that crazy dream. I just want to hear the wet pink, whatever dream that you have, and then they tell me, well, I want to open a coffee shop, and I'm like, okay, and why do you think that is a crazy dream? And then they tell me about it, and then we go deeper into it, and we end up in kind of the other spectrum, which is, oh, a lot of people have done this before me,
Yeah.
and then is it realistic? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And this reminds me of a keynote that I held, and this is a bit like I need to be humble in this because I created a Q word that unfortunately is my last name, OSEN, and it stands for like I made it because I was okay, everything that I know from education and from my experience plus my personality, which is very straightforward, like not making people cry, but I just if you suck, I will tell you.
Yeah.
So that resulted in overview, which is the O, S, which is like being specific. First have the overview. What do you want? What's your dream? What like just a big overview. What the hell do you want? Classic Jordan Peterson right there. The S being specific, like, okay, I need to fund or get funding for opening my coffee shop. Now it's just a coffee shop as an example. Or I need to market myself much better. This is something that actually I have done right now. I contacted like you first of all, and then I contacted another guy that might help me with the marketing
Yeah.
specifically. So that is the specific part. And the E will stand for easy. It needs to be easy to do it. That means, okay, so what do I actually need? Like specifically, what's the easy part here? Well, it's
Yeah.
I need to get a job. It's not easy in every country, but most of us can get a job, right? If it's janitor in the store or armed forces, and you need to put out or away, $100 or £100 each month,
Yeah.
whatever, right? And then I need to call the bank. It has to be some very easy tasks because if not, even if it's specific, humans won't do it. It will be kind of, we will look at it too hard. It's also with the losing weight. This sounds too simplified, but we need to move. And then we can talk about like eating less and all of that, but
Yeah.
we need to one foot in front of the other. And the last one is no. You have to say, like, after the overview and your dream of the coffee shop or whatever, you need to know that you have to say a lot of no to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's why right now, when I'm in between my deployment from my last mission and a lot of time off, now I'm restructuring it to say yes to things that I said no to before because now my priority is different.
Yeah.
Now I want to spend more time with my family. That's why I have to say no to business stuff. You understand what I mean? So you have to
Yeah.
say no to uh, the noise in your signal. Your signal is the coffee shop, and it has to be priority at least number one and two, and everything else is, I'm sorry, it's just not important enough. Like you have to sacrifice, people call it sacrifice, your friends. I call it just deliberately choosing your dream over, sitting in the couch and scratching your scratch. Yeah.
Um, I also think kind of getting a bit deeper, it's really hard to figure yourself out because you need to be honest with yourself. The other part is that Jordan Peterson, what the hell do you want? Do you actually know what you want and why do you want it? Because one thing is like, I want this. Let's say you want the big house, the yacht, the car, kind of the
Mm.
image that you might see online. Uh, Also, why do you want it and how do you get it? It's a bit deeper than just knowing what you want, because also knowing the why is really important, at least from my perspective, because is it really your one or is it a influenced one? Because if you move a long time in the wrong direction, it's really hard to turn around.
Well, that's a great reflection. And I thought about this before, and in another podcast, I was asked about some idol thing because I'm very if I were to ask you like who's your idols or do you like this stone or not, I expect you to give an answer like in 5 seconds. If not,
Yeah,
I will kind of like what's going on here. But I see that in some people that they don't know, like they really don't know, and then I have to readjust. And I as I told in one video earlier to yesterday, I sometimes have too high expectations to others because I
yeah.
hold myself very accountable, which can be self-destructive as well, right? So the thing about finding out what you want or as you were saying, how do you want to be? I sometimes put it out on a childish level. So a colleague
Yeah.
of mine, she struggled with finding out what she wanted to do because she had been working in the forces and stuff. And I said, well, when you watch Netflix, do you think it's cool to wear a suit, or do you think it's cool to wear all white like a doctoral clothing? She was like, why are you asking me this, Daniel? I'm like, no, what do you think is cool? She said, well, I think doctors are really cool. I'm like, okay, tell me why a doctor is cool. Well, they save lives and they are very much respected. Okay, so you want to be respected and you wanna help people.
Yeah.
Is that correct or incorrect? Well, yes. And then we kind of, we chartered it, and
Mhm.
she ended up, and now today she's a nurse. And we still laugh about it. Like, I don't think that I was a linchpin of her life. It was just a reflection exercise.
Yeah.
And I think maybe her mother, maybe her sister, maybe the Netflix series, I don't know, right? But but finding out on a almost like a childish play level, I really like that. Just, what do you think is cool? Like,
Yeah.
okay, Batman. Okay, but you like, can you be Batman? I don't know.
Maybe, maybe next year, next year.
Yeah.
Um, you wrote a book about motivation, which is a very interesting topic. A lot of people struggle with motivation. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because, as you were saying, we are influenced to do certain stuff, and we do them because we are very, how to say it, we follow orders as children. We look up to our parents. I fortunately and unfortunately went out of my family quite young, which made me not, I had to readjust, right?
Yeah.
And then we come to a certain point where it reminds me of someone that I dated many years ago, and she was great in her field. And then she suddenly says, "I always wanted to be, I think it was a surgeon or like a doctor or something."
Yeah.
Okay, but you're a lawyer. That's really cool. Like, you're a lawyer. Damn, you're much cooler than me, right? I'm just like a simple soldier back then. And she was like, yeah, but I always want to do it. And I was like, but why? Why are you a lawyer if you want to be a doctor? Well, my father wanted me to be a lawyer. And I was like, okay. And yeah, and I really struggled to like through law school.
Yeah.
Like, every day was a battle. It was so I'm thinking about uh, what we set ourselves out for. We have a perception that we cannot change it, which why I love what you are doing, because you are going like out of the box, right?
Yeah.
I'm still in the box. I have just a foot outside it as well. So I feel fortunate, and God bless my opportunities. I'm really like grateful for it. But I think that people need to go after what they truly, truly want, and not being forced into, the box, or
Yeah.
the trajectory someone else puts to them, which you find mostly, because I studied in London, and I found that a lot of times, especially with Asian countries. So Pakistani, India, some other countries as well. It was very much that you are gonna be this, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I'm just grateful that I can, or that I was fortunate enough to choose myself. And a lot of people say I became a police officer by coincidence, and I think it's like a popular phrase. And I
Yeah.
say, well, in high school, I knew that I wanted to go into the army. I just knew it. And after that, I knew that I wanted to go into the police university college.
Yeah.
And I always knew that my family would accept me if I were to choose differently. So, if you separate the word motivation, it's a motive and it's action. So I think the first needs to come first, right? You need to have a motive,
Yeah.
and then you take action to it, and just know that I always say life is long. Again, here's a lot of, I think 9 out of 10 people go against me on this because they say, life is short. You need to drink, smoke, and fuck. I say, well, life is pretty long. So I think if you plan it very well, it will go very well for you,
Yeah.
instead of, always having the fear of missing out.
Yeah. And are people inherently lazy? Because obviously a lot of what you talk about is the sport aspect of things. but you also talk about the fitness part and kind of getting out there and moving. Um, it's not always easy, but are people inherently lazy? Is that the issue?
Yeah, it's two things. The one thing is that when we have so much technology and good houses that we have, it's kind of inherited in us that why should we work more when we have
Yeah,
it comfortable? So that is the self-fulfilling prophecy. The second part is that humans are born with a negativity bias, which means that if we have a choice that kind of like, am I a good person or am I a bad person, or is this a good act or a bad act? We will very often judge ourselves down. And the third thing that came to my mind while just reflecting now and talking about it is something that I read the other day, and that is when we are blaming, ourselves or others, we blame the situation if it's about us, and
yeah,
we blame the person if it's the other. So an example on that: if I come late to work, it's the bus that I took's fault that I
never
came
your
late.
fault. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the driver, like he was driving the wrong way, or it was snow or something. But if I'm like you, like my colleague comes late, very often we'll say, ah, that colleague is always late. He's just a lazy ass, and that's kind of funny as a reflection exercise. Like, why is it like that? Well, we want to move ourselves. Like this is not me, and a lot of people say to me, especially earlier when I dated. I don't do that anymore because I have a partner right now. But earlier, they said, "Well, I know myself," and I was like, "Ah, are you sure about that?" And then they were to put out some like hypothesis about themselves, and I was like, "Hmm. Well, I have observed you for 2 years, and I can promise you, you don't clean up that much, you know." So they like people put always or never words, like I
yeah.
always do this or I never do this. And the answer is that, well, actually, we we do different things at different times. It's just that you are more inclined to do this more often than not, and this less often than not, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of ties into or goes back to the time management and the physical aspect of things. Are you always on top of it? Your
No,
tasks and fitness?
Yeah, I think that's also a good question because I am not always on top of things myself, and I feel that the times that where I um, cannot meet my own standards is the simple if I've taken too much stuff on myself. So it was some days ago now, or maybe a week ago. Uh, I had an athlete call, which again, if it's not in the calendar, it's not happening. And I have forgot to put it in the calendar. And then they call me, and I knew that this athlete is having a championship quite soon.
Yeah.
So what I did, I reprioritized straight away, which I really felt bad about because it affects someone else, right? But I had to almost prioritize like which one is more important right now. Is it my own tasks or is it this athlete? And since it was my fault, I had the conscientiousness of that. Okay, I actually need to have this to have this talk. So I feel I get it's better for me if
Yeah.
I plan thoroughly, almost to the weird thoroughly sense. It gives me more than
Mhm.
if I, just go around with my day and hope for the best. And I think this is good thing for the listeners also to take with them that preparing for the next day is like utterly important.
Yeah.
Again, like packing your bag with gym clothes, and you increase your chances of actually going to the gym. It sounds stupidly easy, but it's so powerful. And I notice the days when I'm not doing it, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, ah, Daniel, you little prick, here you are again, you know.
Yeah, it's priming yourself to do the task that you planned out to do. It's just like putting the gym clothes out, putting the running shoes next to the door. Task list is open next to the computer. It's just those small things obviously helps. But for someone like me, we're probably a lot similar in personality types, maybe some
Mm.
differences, but I also try to plan, and the calendar is it's the same. If it's not in a calendar, it doesn't exist. Um, Planned out my day, everything's there, but I tend to kind of slip up. And as soon as the rhythm goes out, I- I'm I'm screwed. How do you combat that and get back into it? Because my calendar says 6:45, it's stretching. Six, no, 7 o'clock, it's knee rehab, and then it's running, and then back to work. But I haven't done that in maybe 4 months.
I think this is this is what I'm researching. So
Yeah,
for me, this is 10 out of 10 in what I'm looking at. And the first thing that came to my mind is the feeling of shame. So when we don't do what we have agreed with ourselves to do, we
yeah,
get this feeling of shame. Um, so an example is like you, right? You're out to do something, but then it slips up, and very often we think, "Oh shit, I'm a bad worker, I'm a bad human, I'm a bad brother." But the thing is, well, you only slipped up right now because again,
yeah.
your attention is a bit limited during a day, and your energy is also limited, or your capacity.
Mhm.
So then I ask, like, which I would have done with you, is it important to you? And you might answer, yes, it is. And I say, okay, if you have a gun to your head, would you have to do it right now? And they're like, well, maybe not. And then it's like, okay, because I also have, for example, in maths, I was really bad in math in school. So I tried to look at the math teacher, but when I looked out the window, it was very much more interesting to watch someone skate or someone making out in in the schoolyard. And then I moved my head back and I was like, oh shit, I forgot about what she said about, some algebra or some
Yeah,
stuff to remember from a math. And then you have a tendency to look down on yourself and like the day is ruined, right? But a simple rule of thumb there is called, I have to translate it to English, is, if you puncture one tire, one tire on your car is flat,
yeah,
don't go out of your car and puncture the three other tires. And what I mean about that is normally when stuff happens in our physical life, we tend to fix it.
yeah,
But when stuff happens in our head, we tend to just, kill everything around us. Like
yeah,
we put gasoline to the fire and everything burns and we just feel bad. So I say it in a playful way, that yeah, when you feel that one tire is flat, just fix that one tire and move on. And that for some people it can be too cold. For people like me and you, it can work um, because you cannot take the ball back after you've shot it, right?
no,
So even though you missed something and I missed something, unfortunately, life is ruthless. It moves on with
yeah,
or without you.
really does. I want to get back to kind of bringing this into business entrepreneurs, business leaders in a second. But first, I want to dive into social media because it ties into time management and motivation and stuff. You did one entire year of social media, which to most people sounds insane. Why did you do it, and what did you learn?
Yeah, I did 1 year without social media with collaboration with the Student Society Oslo, and it's out on YouTube in Norwegian, unfortunately. And I did it because I found, even though I had 3 to 4 hours social media use every day, I found out that people they say this very funny phrase, which is called, I am not addicted to social media. And I'm like, wow, how can you say that? Like, even I have 3 to 4 hours, I know that I am addicted to
Yeah,
social media because even like if I was not on social media, I would feel, that I miss out, or I just know that I will check upon my friends, on the social stuff, or I want to look at a video or whatever. So I was just like, wow, this is like anonymic alcoholic society. I think the first step is admitting, you
Yeah.
know? So, and after I started admitting it, like, okay, I think I'm addicted to social media. And then I was, what is the alternative? Well, there's actually no alternative because some apps in the phone opens the carport for my car.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things in my phone that makes me I have to be on it, right?
Yeah.
So I went 1 year without it, with a friend of mine, and then I saw, later the state channel also did the same projects. God damn those bastards! They replicated my project. But what I found out, because we had a psychologist along the way, she was great, by the way, really good at having conversations about social media, and she get students, and again, they can be 20 years old, they can be 30 years old. She has everything like
Yeah.
bachelor's, master's, PhD students. And what she said that I cannot give you the raw material of data due to, privacy, but a lot of students, they procrastinate. And 8 out of 10 of those is because social media is taking over their world. And for a lot of men, it could be stuff like, Tinder and dating apps, but also, Snapchat and Be Real and Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but for females, it could be like the same, but more in a shopping way. This shoe was
Hmm.
cool, like this purse was cool, and more social than men. Men are more inclined to watch like a lot of manosphere reels and Christianity. Um, and what I found out after just 2 weeks, I think it was, I could still feel that my nervous system was reaching for my phone. So I woke up in the morning and the first thing I did normally was checking Snapchat
Yeah.
because I know in Norway we use Snapchat a lot. And I found out, wow, I don't have the app. What do I do? Well, I can read the newspaper on my phone, or I can read a chapter in my book. So my book reading went insanely up. And I also noticed more people around me using phones. Like in the fitness center, when I went to the gym, a lot of people record themselves in the
Yeah.
gym. They don't say hi. And for me, as an introvert, I'm not that scared about people not saying hi to me, but I notice a lot of other people react on it, and they're like, "Oh, didn't you see me?" And like they think they are like, the main character of the world. But I think it's a syndrome of a disease, an illness in the society when we don't know where we are walking, we cannot hear stuff because we're so into our screens and with our AirPods and everything. So my nervous system thought that I had a mobile phone and social media. Um, but then after some while, I got used to having none of it. And I felt great. I felt that I had, superpowers. I felt that I was not that tired. People talk about the energy levels and all of that. And even though I don't care about it that much, I could feel that I have the excess amount of attention almost that
Yeah.
I could spend on whatever I wanted. Yeah.
No, because back to kind of my schedule and doing the stretching in the morning, then going for the run. When I'm out of it, it's just I still wake up at the same time, but like instead of doing the things that I have planned or should do, it's just okay, 40 minutes on social media, TikTok, whatever, in the morning before I do anything. And then it kind of falls completely flat. And that was 40 minutes I could do literally anything else with it. As well as I also feel that kind of energy attention thing when you use your phones, especially social media early in the morning, it just plummets immediately.
Yeah,
Through,
because
yeah,
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
no, but through I guess you got a lot of questions through the project and after. What were the most common questions?
Most common questions was definitely how did you feel? And And I found out that people ask this question is because they are used to feeling what they are feeling with social media. And this
Yeah.
one friend of mine, she because we started off with asking 100 people if they want to join the project. Everyone said no, uh, and like we gathered some why data, like why didn't they want to join
Yeah.
us? And one of them, she said. Well, I could do this, for, maybe 1 to 2 months, but then I would just, I made it, so I wouldn't do it anymore. And I said, yeah, but we were asking you for 1 year. Like, why wouldn't you do it? Well, because then I would prove to myself that I've done it for 1 month, and I don't need to go out without it for 1 year. I thought, okay, so you don't think you need to go without it for 1 year. Why is that? Well, I love to hang around on Snapchat, Instagram, whatever, right? And I was like, exactly. There we have the answer. We are addicted. We just don't want to admit it. And
Yeah.
again, my goal was not for her to feel shame about it. It was just that it's again a self-fulfilling prophecy that we are addicted to it. We are using it more, which increases the addiction, which makes us, so it's like a circle. And this reminds me of an article that I wrote, a research article, and it was about, your earlier question, with how to make it more probable doing a task than not.
Yeah.
And a guy that was, I think he was single. It was not that they talked about why he should clean his house or whatever to actually clean his house and take care of himself. It was actually moving and what's it called when you're yeah, vacuum cleaner, moving the vacuum cleaner closer to him, like physically moving it closer to him. And they did that with a lot of participants, and I could see that after doing that they vacuum cleaned their room,
Yeah.
which was really interesting that having things closer to you, like physically, makes you more inclined to doing it. So if you have your phone physically further away from you, it can work very very well. Also, having your bag of gym clothes closer to you, reminding you, if you don't train today, you will suck. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
Same with business, having your schedule of here's my meeting plan just closer to you, it can increase the probability of you executing it because it's there, as a reminder.
Yeah, it's kind of the out of sight, out of mind thing.
Yeah.
And uh I have that incredibly hard, which is annoying for a lot of people in my life. But if I can't see it, it's not there. So I also need to do a lot of things, like filming content. I need the
Mhm.
camera on my desk at all times for it to actually happen like once a week. Because if the camera's packed down and sat in the corner, it just doesn't exist. So I think it's very common. It's just hard to kind of get into that level and doing it uh, as a regular thing instead of pushing yourself to do it every single time.
And that reminds me, to entrepreneurs and to business because uh, instead of only thinking and having this vision, strategy, or whatever, I really do believe in the Elon Musk kind of way. Just launch the rocket. It does
Yeah,
not need to be perfect. Uh, you can have the best idea, but if it stays in your head all the time, it will only be a good idea. It will
yeah,
not be a real project. So that is something that I think like a lot about is launch the goddamn rocket, dude. You
yeah,
can do it. Just it's not perfect, but get it out there. And in business, I feel the same. I was consulting a business that wanted me to talk about feedback and about motivation, and they wanted me to take part in a leadership group, which very rarely or seldom they do. But they wanted me to do that. I was like, what is my role here? They were like, Daniel, just shut up and listen. I'm like, okay, cool. And I sat there and I listened to what they were talking about, and I said, "Can I come with a, an opinion?" And I said, "Yeah, you're very much welcome to. Like we have paid you to sit here." And I said, "Well, why don't you listen to, what the customer wants instead of only listening to what your sellers want?" And
Yeah.
then this one guy said, "Well, we've tried that before, so we're only going to focus on what our sellers are saying." And I said, "Okay, because that sounds like you're listening to a to only one guy speaking the other, like to the other person
Yeah.
without receiving feedback, which was a very basic thing to assist and advise with." And after that they said, "Okay, we will try this with some people one more time and see if the sales goes up." And I said, "Well, it doesn't, you cannot only listen to the other part. You need to evaluate it and you need to adjust to the customer. You need to be flexible when you're selling something. Why do the customer need, this pen, this vacuum cleaner? Well, their house is dirty, it needs to be always like a why there. Why do the customer need this product?"
Yeah.
And after that, they implemented it, and I was just like, "This is the most basic thing. I don't need a bachelor or master's to say this. I think everyone that listens now, they would have seen the same,
Yeah.
because evaluating a seller only on what they are saying, not what they receive and how they process information, is for me quite dull. It's not good."
Oh, and this is ties perfectly into kind of what we do in terms of marketing and advertising. Uh, if we should only listen to the sellers, we will never sell a product through advertising because we're not speaking to the people who are actually buying the product. And when we advertise, it's towards wants, pains, challenges, and of course, pricing is obviously a trigger, but that also has a deeper trigger as well. So the feedback cycle has to be to the end consumer of the product or the receiver of the service, not the middle guy who sells the service. Yes, you should definitely optimize for your employees and kind of getting their day and workflow as good as possible. But again, the feedback they receive and turn around in their head to give to you, that's not good enough. It's not unbiased data. It's just muddled with their perception.
And that's why I think that shame can be a good feeling as well. It's a rule that says that shame comes with your kind of own evaluation of yourself, and conscientiousness comes with people's view of you, or like if you met some standards. Did you come to the dinner with your girlfriend or whatever, and then you feel a bit bad, right? But shame, it's a kind of what should I call it? A self-regulatory mechanism inside
Yeah.
of you. That means that if you go home from work early and you know that you have not delivered today, and if you feel shame, I often say to clients that, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a very good thing actually, like because it will adjust in you to make you perform maybe a little bit better tomorrow. Of
Yeah.
course, if it's shame on shame on shame on shame on shame, you might end up depressed or grow anxiety, which is not a good thing, of course. But I try to give a broader perspective and perception on that. Well, shame is quite a good thing because it makes you rise your standards to yourself.
Yeah.
And if you are able to fuel it correctly, for example, that, okay, well, tomorrow I will make up 1 hour, or actually the opposite, that, okay, this week went as it is, and I will accept it. Like a lot of people, this is especially women actually, they don't accept what has happened, like, in a way that, okay, next week can become better. And I think that what's increasing what's it called in English, the sick leaves, when people are home from work because they
Yeah.
are either mentally or physically ill. They feel
Yeah.
they have burned out, right? I think that comes from acceptance because you need rainy days to have sunny days. That's the most
Yeah.
basic thing that we could say today. And with that knowledge, we know that not every single day will be perfect. So accepting that this Friday was not that good, Monday and Tuesday will come. I will do my best to thrive. And having a little bit of shame is just healthy as
Yeah.
long, again, it doesn't spiral down.
Yeah, I have two things. The first thing that came to mind is you mentioned Alcoholic Anonymous earlier, and that acceptance thing, the Serenity prayer, accept the things I cannot change and give me the strength to change the thing that I can, is one of the best kind of lines ever. And even if you're not in AA or kind of struggling with any addiction or anything, you could use that in every single day in any situation in life because it's so powerful. I actually repeat that to myself at least once a week just to remind myself that okay, this is something we can change. Okay, then it's gone, it's done, leave it there. Um, but give me the strength to change the things that I can, and that's where your focus should be. The other thing is that shame part. You mentioned it, but I want to double down on it. It's actually a standard that you set for yourself. So if you don't meet that standard or perform below it, that shame is again, it's a good thing. You just need to regulate it in terms of that spiral, as you mentioned, because going that down that one could be horrendous.
Yeah, it can, and that's why I like what's it called? It's actually just a question, and that is, what is the alternative? Why I like that question is because after having that bad day at work, right? Or after some things have happened, or yeah, whatever happens situation in your life, it's what is the alternative? And then people will find out very quickly after that question that is, well, I cannot quit my job because I need money. Or they find out actually the opposite. Well, I can quit my job because I'm attractive in the working market, which is
Yeah,
also good. Or it's like in Norway, for example, it's very easy to get sick leave.
big
So
cities. Yeah,
you can say, boss, chief, I don't feel well today. And like maybe you are not like really not feeling well. Like, your head is exploding, you have fever, you should go home, right? And a lot of people they say to me, well, I haven't thought about that. And I was like, okay, so you're a 35-year-old man and you haven't thought about that, maybe fever equals to staying at home because that might be better for you, better for your colleagues, and actually better for everyone. It's like, no, no, like I'm used to just like getting my shit together and work. I'm like, okay, do you think that is sustainable for a long, like good, healthy life? No. Okay. So like we check in on some questions. Not now I just took some like very close questions, which are like
sure.
yes or no. Normally we start broader, but when we end up in that clarity, because that is kind of my goal, is something from the sports world, but how clear is your goal, which can be used in business as well.
Yeah,
And a lot of people think they have clear goals, but they don't really have it because when it's okay, but what do you need to do today, this week, this month, and this year to achieve that goal? They're like, I'm not sure. I'm like, okay, but have you talked to Alexander? Have you talked to someone that is above you or equal to you in the industry? Have you mapped it out? Have you sat down, had a coffee, and just looked at what needs to be done? And so I find that most basic things are the ones that are overlooked. And
yeah,
then a second question, which is really powerful, and that this is also in the sports world, but again, like it can be applicable in the business world. And that is one sports psychologist that no, actually he's a psychologist, not a sports psychologist. He said, I know a lot of high performers that perform a lot or that train a lot, but I know very few that rest enough or rest good enough.
yeah,
Which I think when he says that, that's a very powerful statement. That means that a lot of us we are like rabbits that are like, oh, we need to do this, and like horses, it's like ding, 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 yalla yalla, we go 200 kilometers an hour, and then it's like, but we don't rest enough, we don't rest well enough.
yeah.
And when he said that, I was convinced because he said it with a strong ethos. And I really believed him because he has been what's it called? He has been writing these sick leave notes so the
Yeah.
employer has to accept his clients that he's sick because he has 500 tasks. So I really believe that guy.
Yeah. I have a long way to go on resting professionally. Um, you said you slept 6.5 hours and felt groggy. That's kind of my regular sleep. Today I slept 5. It's not good.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
but I have a long way to go. Um, Staying in sports, I worked with uh, the Norwegian rower Olav Tufte for a little while on a brand.
Cool.
Um, he's mentally one of the strongest people I've met. Also Olympic winner, whatever. He told me one thing that kind of stuck with me, and it's you can never be overtrained, just under rest, which I was like, interesting.
Hmm.
So that stuck with me. Obviously, I haven't done anything with it, but it's a good thing to live by.
That's a very good like it's come almost like the same, right? Because
Yeah,
it's funny that you work with him because I worked with an athlete of him.
yeah,
And yeah, he's brutal. He's really hard. And I think when he also says that, our Olympic rower, Norway is a
yeah,
small country, and he's such a huge figure. I think that says a lot. That the resting part needs to be underpinned in such a well manner
yeah.
and put up as a huge priority.
The stuff we're talking about is obviously relevant to all types of people. You could or should bring this into your regular everyday life. But when we look at most successful entrepreneurs, business types, or athletes that you work with, there are some characteristics in common. What do you think makes people more successful, and what differentiates them from others?
Yeah, to begin with, I know some objective facts that are not my opinion, but from science, and that is um, um, the ability or the skill to plan or to
Yeah.
be more on the planning side. What's that called in the Big Five theory in English? I can't remember what it is, but when you're
Yeah.
uh, yeah, you have a high and good sense and ability to plan out your life. That is more favorable than not favorable.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a bad athlete if you are a bit more, spontaneous or you are a bit more intuitive. But being more on the planning side, which will make you thrive in
Yeah.
whatever you do. And then we can talk about, of course, are you more into the perceiver kind of way, which is you look at a lot of choices that weighs the same, or you're more judgmental, which means that you can be a bit more single-minded and you can be a bit more if that guy has hole in his pants, he's most likely a homeless guy, which he might not be,
Yeah.
so that's like the difference between judgmental and a perceiver. And we also see that being a bit more on the judgmental side will actually help you, because then if a coach says, well, you're going to do 2 sprints, 5 weightlifting sessions, and then you go to bed and sleep after that, you will trust it. But the perceiver will be like, yeah, but I can swim and maybe I can just sleep later and just I don't need to care about that. It's like, okay.
Before we go further, um, you is it possible to be kind of both? Because obviously no one's 100% or 100%, but I was just in terms of that coach or let's say authority figure, some of
Hmm.
us have obvious issues with authorities because I would probably question, let's say, a teacher or a coach. But in business, for example, if let's say Alex Hormozy tells me this works, the proof is there, which I'm like inclined to follow.
Yeah, because with the authority figure, I think that would be if you think that the person you talk with have the correct or enough competence,
Yeah,
you will trust the person. And to the first question, if we can be both, this is also very interesting because a lot of people say, I am extroverted and introverted. And
yeah,
that is, yeah, of course, everyone is because we have different requirements in different roles that we have. But if it's um, um, if it's a banana and a pear in front of you and you walk into the room, which one would you pick most and which would you pick the least?
yeah,
So if you pick the apple, well, you're a more apple guy. That doesn't mean that you hate pears. It means that you enjoy pears sometimes,
yeah,
but you will choose the apple more often than not. And that is in the same spectrum, which is why I like the Jungian type index.
yeah.
Is what are you more than less?
Makes
So
sense.
that's what we see in great planners and in great or in bigger than most on the judgmental side. That this is just two assets of a lot of things. We can
Yeah,
say that upbringing and all of this and what you eat and if you touch yourself with the right hand instead of left and if you meditate, all of this. But we see on the planning side and on the judgmental side in the personality is a bit more favorable than not. And this
yeah,
just goes back to planning hard sessions and planning when to rest. And you can see Nicolai Tangen, the CEO of the Norwegian oil fund.
yeah,
Uh, he's doing this 10 to 15 minutes sleep sessions in the middle of the day, and he also employed two performance psychology coaches, Anders Mæland and Bjørn Mansverk, two great figures that I have as idols. I look up to them both. I talk to Anders a little bit, and yeah, it's a documentary out, and it just means that taking your mental health and your performance seriously, it matters.
let's continue on the kind of what differentiates successful people and others. I don't want to say unsuccessful people because obviously there are subjective and objective measures, but what differentiates more successful people?
Yeah, more successful people apart from the planning side and the judgmental thing in psychology with a lot of people have ideas, but not a lot of people execute them. And instead of going into personality psychology, we could say that have you been encouraged or discouraged to do tasks earlier, right?
Hmm.
Which brings it to like childhood and trauma and whatever. But here's where I put my experience in instead of only science,
Sure.
and that is accountability versus what's the English word for it? Blame or what do you point at.
Yeah.
So it can be you can blame the weather for getting wet, but it's still you need to stay accountable for wearing your raincoat
Yeah.
even still. And it's the same with the car, right? It can be the car's fault that it broke down, but you have to hold yourself accountable for not bringing it into service or to a repair station or to a mechanic because it's ultimately your own fault. And
Yeah.
that's why I think now most listeners probably see this or listen to this and not see this, but if you point like a finger, like outwards, now I'm doing this on the camera, I can point on Alexander, you, that like it's your fault that this connection is bad or the sound is bad. But then under here you can see three fingers that points towards myself. That is like, oh well, I didn't pay for a good enough internet. Why didn't I bring my microphone here so the voice can be a bit better, So the whole point is hold yourself accountable, point
Yeah.
inwards before pointing outwards. I think that is really, really powerful. And when I do this, it works for me. But I know that some people need more the support side. And then I will encourage, not differently, but I would say who do you have in your network that you can trust? And if people have, a sister, a friend, or whatever, I would say, okay, you should more than not talk to them like a
Yeah.
lot. Just talk to them. Okay, have they trained today? Okay, do you want to train with them? Yeah, yeah, that would be great. Okay, let's go for a run. Okay, cool. Me, introverted, I don't need that. I don't need Alexander. I need myself because
Yeah.
I look at the world from my perspective and out. If you're an extrovert, you look at, okay, what would people think about me if I train? Oh, they would love it. Okay, let's create a society, guys. Let's go together and do a spinning session. And I would hate it. I would puke and I would say, no, I want to go into the corner and lift weights.
Yeah.
So I would advise differently for different persons. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I really like the blaming and the accountability um, metaphor. I like that.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes back to what we kind of started the podcast with in terms of knowing yourself, personality types, because you could sit here and kind of say, do this and this works, but obviously it doesn't work for everyone. Like me and you, Jocko Willnick's extreme ownership book is probably the way to go. Everything's my fault and deal with it. But for others, it's more Gabor Mate and talk with your parents
Yeah,
approach.
support. Yeah.
I also think about the uh, study that became the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. You read it?
Not read it, but I heard about it, and yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting as well because the key factor they found is that grit is what determines if you're successful or not. And then you have to define what grit is. But essentially, it's like staying power and stamina, which I think is overlooked because, yes, the idea is important, but I think 2 million people probably thought of the idea of Uber or Airbnb, but you didn't do anything about it. And then maybe 2,000 people started the project and stopped. So kind of staying power and stamina is extremely important in both business life and sports.
I enjoy that you say that because one of the lectures I will hold next week in, what is sports psychology. We will start there, very basic. I think module number 3 is about goal setting work, and on the lowest, most important part of the goal setting, um, which is like the fundament, is actually stamina. So that's
Yeah.
quite cool that you said. So in the model from the Olympic Sport Society,
Yeah.
just to name it something. It is stamina, and that means staying in it and know that every day won't be perfect. You need to show up, and after some while, if you've tried and not succeeded, then we can change something. Which
Yeah.
reminds me of our common friend Marcus. He's a successful entrepreneur in property, but he has also been a successful coach
Yeah.
in fitness, and he has a lot of followers on different social media platforms. He says that the most or the biggest mistake people do is that they don't follow up program for an extensive time. And I was like, but what is extensive time, Marcus? I don't know shit about fitness. It's like, well, I would recommend that it's like 8 to 12 weeks. Most people give up after week 1. And I'm like, whoa, do people like, if you tell me to do this, I will do this. But he said, yeah, but you're not like everyone. So
No.
people they try stuff for 1 to 2 weeks and then they like, doesn't work, I will change. That's the stupidest thing you can do. Try it for at least 8 to 12. This is in the fitness world. In the business world, I don't know, 6 months. How long would you say?
No, I would say a lot longer because I see a lot of people popping up, especially with kind of low barrier to entry businesses, which like the agency world that we're in, you could start tomorrow and start selling Meta advertising or Google advertising. You could start selling content, but also that lower barrier for entry means there's a lot more competition. So you need to stay longer for it to actually have you need a feedback cycle, both in terms of longevity as well as quality of work. So I see people starting doing it for 6 months and then starting something else, and they might have earned some money or made some good business decisions along the way, but think of the best brands, the best businesses. None of them, not a single one was made in 6 months or to 1 year. It's you have to stay longer. It's like the most important part in business is staying in business. That's the number one kind of key feature of business is staying in business, and you can actually out stamina or outstay your competition. It's that simple. Because if 1,000 people start the company in 3 years, most of them would have quit.
And you know, how many episodes does this podcast have right now?
This will be the 23rd, and we did the Norwegian one for 40, I think. But our focus shifted to English speaking countries. So this podcast will go on for a long time now.
Because that's quite funny. The reason why I asked is because I don't know where I read it, but I think it's 80% or actually more 90%
Yeah.
of podcast creators, they don't survive till the first 25 episodes, which
Oh,
means that you're 2 episodes away
yeah.
being, you know, the last or top 10%. Because a lot of people they start, like I'm one of them. I started a podcast which doesn't exist right now, you know, with Marcus because
Yeah.
he got too busy for me. Uh,
Yeah, I haven't
and
heard from him.
yeah, yeah, I'm crying in my sleep. But I also am a part of a podcast which we have over
Yeah.
25 episodes. So just that you stayed in this, even though a podcast is just like a little thing
Yeah.
of like a microscopic thing of everything that you do, I think that should be appraised and hallmarked. You know, like okay,
Yeah.
yeah, 25 episodes in, and maybe you have 100 customers. Let's say that. Okay, 100 customers. Yeah, really cool. Now I have 50 employees. You know, like those celebrating those small wins.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have the two next schedules, so we're going to be at 25 at least. So that's great. Um, we have a little bit of time left. Should we get into Norway politics and building the future?
Sure, that's really cool, and it also challenged me a little bit.
Um, let's start with the tying in what we just talked about business entrepreneurs. We see a lot of people leaving Norway, especially those who are already rich. I don't see that as the biggest issue, to be honest, because yes, some local communities are suffering because there are hundreds of millions missing from the tax bill because they moved out. What I'm seeing as the main issue is my generation and younger are already moving out of Norway before they start building, which means you don't have the business in Norway ever, and they will never move back, which Norway will suffer for a very long time.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Yeah, the thing is, I am on your side if I get you right, which means that uh, with kind of punishing entrepreneurs and people that innovate,
Yeah,
that is, yeah, how to bury your own grave, right? And I understand why people don't see it because I work in a public sector as well as I'm doing a private
yeah,
sector thing, and I also worked in the private sector as a privacy advisor for 2 years prior to this, being at Google headquarters in Dublin. I've been to San Francisco in Silicon Valley, and people in the public sector and you know for our Labour Party in Norway, they see the safe, normal public income model,
yeah,
and everyone that is you know above or that are creating or innovating something, they should kind of contribute to the Norwegian welfare system, which is a good thought. It's a heartwarming thought. But what you end up doing, again, I'm not sure about the English in this, but you're taxing people double because they need
yeah.
to tax for their company itself. And then you have the, what's it called, the fortune
Yeah, wealth
tax.
tax. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, wealth tax. Yeah, correct. That's the correct English word for it, which makes you actually being taxed twice. And then I think you end up in yeah, with everything else, I think you can end up in like 60% tax or something.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm very wrong about that. Like,
no,
what's
that's the like kind of worst case scenario above 60 because you have income tax, um, you have the business tax, you have the wealth tax, and then you could probably add on VAT as well, which is 25% on all purchases. Um, so yeah, your money's getting taxed triple if you count VAT as well. So it's not sustainable at all. It's super sustainable for the state in terms of getting income, but it's not sustainable for people in the country, and it's not sustainable to build businesses.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because when you're starting to do that and you see that people move out, it's also a spiral
Yeah,
going on, right? So, uh, as you've been saying, we always, or not always, but we have lately been demonstrating that a lot of companies go to, like, even close countries like Sweden,
yeah,
and some goes to, of course, the US and other countries. But just that you move to a neighboring country when it's so bad in Norway to
yeah,
innovate. That's really sad, and I feel, or I know actually that we are a minority thinking this, and I'm a bit shocked about that because we had an election quite recently, and when you see the numbers that people vote, maybe it is for other stuff as well, right?
yeah.
But when you see the percentage in what people vote, and that we have a new 4 years of the Labour Party with the same trajectory of what we had. That is really sad for a country like Norway.
Yeah, and all of the we have the natural resources, obviously, but everything's there to actually build a real business hub and innovation hub in Norway. You could bring in foreign capital. Everything could be set up really, really good to bring more business and bring more innovation to Norway. But they just decide not to do it, which for me doesn't make sense, obviously. But I'm concerned because this election that we just had, now I'm young and naive, but from my point of view, it's been the worst. Uh, what's it called? Regjering. Uh,
But yeah, the worst government
yeah,
entity.
it's been the worst government maybe in Norwegian history, both in terms of we've seen corruption, we've seen people stealing from airports, we've seen they use the system to their advantage, renting out apartments and getting free housing. It's just been so many things. They switched out the entire cabinet two, three times in 4 years. And they have seen all of these business owners' capital leave the country. And then we continue electing this. And now the state budget was released, and people are like shocked, and it's horrible. And I'm like, you voted for this specific
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, and I saw what was the one that had or are earning um the very least. They
Yeah,
get
yeah,
200 kroners, which is £20, which is $20 in what's it called, like tax ease that you
yeah,
don't
per
and
year.
per year. And I'm like, that's so little that it's crazy that we vote for. When you first vote for the Labour Party,
Yeah,
you would think that at least it would be more like harder socialism and
yeah,
equality and all of that. But then you see that, and then you think, what is going on here? And this is the main reason why the newly founded Generation Party, I would
yeah,
call it a direct translation, which I'm a part of now, because I'm a right, not a right-wing extremist. I'm just a right-oriented guy.
yeah,
And Generation Party is more in the center. But that's why the Generation Party wants a more direct democracy, so you can
yeah.
actually see what people think. And I know, of course, in the law it says that government elected people, they can, if they want, disregard people's opinion, but it will be an immense pressure if you see in, again, this is a very ideal technological good way of thinking democracy. If 5 million people, or just like 3 million people in
Yeah,
Norway elects, well, we want the wealth tax to be either reduced or removed,
yeah,
it will be immense pressure to the politicians of actually doing something about it. The same with the European Union question, because I don't want Norway to be a full member into the European Union right now. But if people want it, they
yeah.
at least have the opportunity. Because the last time we voted about this, like really, was in 1994 when I was born,
Yeah,
and
it
that's a
was
long
before I
time.
was born was the um last kind of public election of any case in Norwegian government. The only thing we can vote on is politicians and parties at this point, and it's been 20, 30 years, 31 years, yeah, since the
Yeah.
last time we voted on anything.
Yeah, and that is then you can ask, are we sovereign? Yes, we are a country. We have a flag, of course, but and democracy exists to a certain degree. Of course, we are not a autocracy like Russia, Iran, China, but still, why cannot we have a more direct, to the bone, straightforward
Yeah,
democracy, which is the big stone of the Generation Party. Again, we are a very small party. We're not big on the labor side or on the right side. It's a more center right leaned, I
yeah.
would say, party. Supporting a lot of entrepreneurs and innovators out there, and with the numbers 22,500, if I remember correctly, votes that we got, that means that for the municipality
Yeah.
county election that will be in 2 years, that then we know we will have a spot, which is really important. It's important to play with what you got. Like
Yeah.
we only have the cards we have, and it takes generations. Therefore, the generation party, my friends, to change people's opinion, right?
Yeah.
So, and also what is interesting is why is a lot of European countries electing more right-oriented parties, but Norway still elects the left-wing
Yeah.
side. I think that is also a bit strange.
It's very curious. I had a discussion on this a while ago in terms of most newly held elections went right, as in right-leaning politics, not right in terms of my opinions. Um, but Norway didn't seem to get the memo, I guess. I think also it comes back to what I've been saying since I kind of got engaged into politics. It's Norwegian has been brainwashed within one generation because we found oil. And now it's been like this forever. We have welfare, everything's great. We have this safety net, nothing goes wrong ever. But that's not the reality. And I think we are living on a kind of pink cloud floating up here. We're the happiest country in the world. Everything's great, but it's obviously not sustainable. And I'm scared because I think this election was maybe the most important one in Norwegian history, and I think we're going to suffer for, or at least Norway, the state and people in it, are going to suffer for at least 20 to 30 years because this is going to take a long time to rectify, as well as driving more people to actually invest into Norway and Norwegian companies.
Yes, and as you're saying, I think we are leaning on what we have. Of
Yeah.
course, we play on our strengths and all of that, but not sustainable for the future. Some very clear things that I see is we got into this windmill project, for greener world and better electricity. But if we turn back time, we put on or out like the electricity cables,
Yeah.
right? So there are two most consuming electrical countries in the world, which is Germany and Great Britain. And I'm just like, what were we thinking, you know? And it was not until recently
Yeah.
some politicians admitted that, yeah, actually they are transmitting the electricity between them, and we are actually lacking. Uh, like we are providing them with so much power that it will like our power will be more expensive for us.
Yeah.
Hence why now in autumn in October as we're in, the government has offered very nicely of them, right? This Norway price that's
Yeah.
as I call it, to households for not having too high of an electricity bill, which I find quite funny. It's kind of like because you've screwed up, we need to pay the price, and now we need to make a deal with you to not get a too high of electricity bill, right?
It's insane. Building for the future, you talk a lot about fertility rates and obviously the business side of things, innovation, we need that to build the country for the future. But we also need more people or new people at least.
Yes, and I will actually, in not a very long time, I will have a new podcast episode with one of the leading experts in this in Norway, which I think will be really cool because after I had an article out in the press, it just went mental. I got so
Yeah,
many
that was
messages, and in the comment
crazy.
sections, people were like, laughing with capital letters and calling like a anti-female guy. And I was just a bit shocked. But one of the researchers I talked to previously, Mats Larsen, he warned me about this. He said, if you're
Yeah,
gonna mean something about this, prepare yourself, like embrace and hide. And and but the point is that we have a decreasing fertility. That's facts. It's
yeah,
1.4 in Norway, and in a lot of European countries, I think in Spain it's 1.7. In the UK it's 1.7 or 6. So in a lot of Western countries it's declining. And then we can talk about what is the consequences, which I challenged the researcher I talked with. I said, well, you just talked about a lot of people not having enough babies, and the people with babies not having more than at least two, which is
yeah,
a problem. But babies cost and all of that, and it takes your energy. And I was just like, this is just problems. Can you tell me about the consequences? And then I said, yes, I can, but I have to be careful, he said. So he kind of re-asked me. He said, what do you think when families from different countries they get 5 to 6 babies, and just as one case study, they have different views on women, and when they become a majority, we have strong indicators that we as a minority, that this will be like a lot of years in the future, we will not be considered. Our feelings and what
yeah,
we want and our democracy and our women view of women, because Norway is the most egalitarian, open, democratic uh, country. And I always said very rudely, why would people live in another country than Norway? But you, of course, you live in another country.
yeah,
So, um, with that said, the consequences can be quite severe,
yeah,
and it can be damaging to how we have built our society. And that is not me being racist. And if you're immature, if you don't look into the data, you will just throw around you like, oh yeah, but you hate women, or you're in disfavor of immigrants. Well, a lot of immigrants in Norway have done quite well. We have a lot of Polish immigrants. I think that's the biggest immigrant group in Norway. They have a high work ethic, such as Ukraine, and a lot of other countries also contribute in their way. But then I have a family member that has worked with immigrants for a lot of years, and he says very direct, and again, not to be racist, there are some groups, some countries
yeah,
that are contributing less to Norway society than other groups because the cultural difference, the the difference on how we look on like women. Like they ask questions like why do women drive cars? And we're just like, well, in Norway they have been driving cars for I don't know, like last 40 years, like 50, I don't know. Like of course it was harder for our parents than it is for us today,
Sure.
right? They have always been able to for a very long time, and we value women quite high, and they can be whatever they want to be. But with that said, it also comes with a cost. So when women climb the social economic ladder, when you're a woman, you will never date someone that are below you. You will date someone that are equal or above you. That's like
Yeah.
the biological sense of females. Then you can ask, yeah, but there are some people, and I'm like, yeah, there's always some people. I'm just saying, women, the most they date sideways or up. And when a woman comes, as a top lawyer or solicitor, and a top engineer, a top entrepreneur, a top officer in the armed forces, she will never date someone that is below her. And then you can ask, how many men are left? Well, not many. And then the researcher I talked to, he gave a very provocative statement, which was very, very funny. Like he got almost like hated for this. He said, in the polygynic societies, which
Yeah.
means one man, several women, which we don't want this, but like in polygynic societies, they get more babies. Because for a woman, it can be better to be woman number four to a high status man than to be woman number one for a low status man.
Yeah.
And if you turn it towards men, men are different. Men, they like, I'm not going to say they don't care. Like we care about careers and stuff as well, and we can see that it's like increasing in numbers right now. Maybe
Yeah.
because we have to survive. I don't know, but normally men, they don't care. They date very much down, both in
Yeah.
age, competence, sometimes in looks as well.
Yeah.
But men value, how to say this, like facial features if she works in a store, it doesn't matter if she has, great tits and ass. That's the simple man's way of producing children,
Yeah.
because we are just more simple. And this also comes to the my last sentence. It's a long sentence for me here. Is women should discriminate because they have so many options. And even if we
Yeah.
have contraceptive pills and contraceptive methods, psychologically, a woman thinks that she can become pregnant if she has sex with someone. That means that it's a very risky thing to have sex with a
Yeah.
man. He should be good looking, he should have resources, he should be intelligent, and he should protect me. If he doesn't have those four things or more, then he's not good enough for me. Men, we want to reciprocate, and like we want to give birth to children. So uh, if I can have sex with most women, at least one of them will have
Yeah.
my child. Sounds like an oversimplified version, but it's called that the female species should discriminate and the
Yeah.
male species should be generous.
Yeah. I think we definitely have some things to solve. And in terms of the immigration part as well, we see it in other parts of Europe. I was just in Italy for 4 months, and immigration offices, I was not there for 4 months. I was there for three maximum. Um, but they are definitely having issues, very much so. They also have issues with refugees coming with boats, and the president went on the election to kind of get rid of this problem. Nothing happened, of course, as
Mm.
politicians does. But it is a huge issue, and you notice it in almost every single city across Italy, and obviously close to you as well in the UK. That's becoming a huge issue. The cultural differences, and it's not solvable in terms of integration either, because the cultural differences are so huge. So you kind of need to figure out if we should just stop it and try to work with what we have, or kind of go the American route and send ice on the doors. I don't think that's a good solution either, but I don't have the answer.
Yeah, and I think that this is the one standard thing with like, it's complex, it's nuanced, whatever. But I am very much in favor of social experiments. And again, this sounds politically incorrect, but okay, let's if we're stopping right now, what will happen? I don't
Yeah,
think anything would happen. We just play with the cards that we have, and we can help the ones that we have. And this is a kind of an idealistic way of me to think, because I've thought about this, and I was like, why, like forcefully, why would we need to travel? Just like can I do business calls on Teams? Can I do my
yeah,
PhD through Teams, video chat? Yes, I like to vacate. Yes, I like beaches. But do I need to go to a beach? Do I need warmer weather? Can people get help where they are instead of
yeah,
coming to us? Do we need to care about Gaza? Do we need to support Israel or Palestine? They are very much, far away from us. Of course, we can say this about Ukraine as well, but I would vouch that, well, Ukraine is closer to us geographically, religiously, and also in culture. And the your friend's adversary
yeah.
is your adversary, kind of like, or your friend's friends can be your adversaries as well. So when we have close borders to Russia, I would look at it in a different way. But my point is, this is a social experiment. Can we just close everything?
Yeah.
Crazy. Like, I've never heard anyone say it, but I would just be very, I don't know, radical or whatever to say it. Close everything, no flying at all.
Then I'm staying here in Spain, enjoying life. Awesome. We have a closing question on the podcast, tying it back into business, because if we continue on politics, we could sit here for the rest of the day.
Amen.
But the closing question is, what is the beauty of business to you?
It's doing what I like, because, in the forces, I get orders, I need to do whatever. But in business, I can look that, oh, actually, my customers, they want advice on this, or they want more keynotes on this, or they want more follow-up. And that brings me to, okay, where do I need to look? Well, I need to talk to Alexander. Okay, I like talking to Alexander. Like, it gives me a more of a perspective of what I want to do, according with what the customer wants to change in their world. Like, they want to change their performance, they want to be better at something. And again, that goes back to the start of this podcast, which is meaning. If it's meaningful, then you want to do more of it. And that's why I think people are. That's my hypothesis of why people are lazy. They do things that are not meaningful to them, but
Yeah,
maybe meaningful to others. So the beauty of business is, doing exactly what is sustainable for the future, and what I like.
beautiful. Where can people find you and who should reach out?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Osen, Osen. It's a weird surname. A lot of people have the name Olsen, right, in Scandinavian countries. So yeah, LinkedIn, I think that is the best, of course, on Instagram and wherever. And I have a website as well, and people can sign up to either become my client, or we can just have a chat. I also do have a podcast. So yeah, so thank you for inviting me to this.
Thank you. Show notes and bio on YouTube will have all the links. And, thank you.